there are the Picard frozen products in France.
Les surgelés.
Oui. There are Picard leathers in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of Commander Picard in Star Trek, travel beyond the stars. But,
Maybe.
But the only one who has traveled beyond the movie stars is, our guest today, is Andrea Picard. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You are programmer of TIFF from 1999. So how did it all begin then?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I've had several roles. So I started very young, right out of university, and I was the coordinator of the Cinematheque. So I worked at the Cinematheque for a number of years as a researcher, and then as an assistant programmer, and then as a programmer. And then in 2006, I stepped in to program the wavelength section at TIFF, and then I had a dual responsibility between year-round programming and festival programming.
Okay, completely. And what is wavelengths? Because, those of us who know about Michael Snow and his works have seen wavelength, for sure. But wavelengths?
You're asking what it is?
What it is, tell us in your own
words.
words.
Well, Wavelengths, believe it or not, is almost 20 years old. So it was a section that was founded kind of as an offspring from the Cinematheque. The Cinematheque has always had a tradition of showing experimental film work and avant-garde work. So we wanted to continue that on the festival level and have a showcase of experimental, largely short films. It began as a short film showcase. And then it grew to accommodate feature-length films as well. So as you mentioned, it is named for Michael Snow's Wavelength, his masterpiece from 1967. And we've shown Michael Snow films in the program since, and he's been a long-time audience member as well, which is very thrilling for the filmmakers who come and they see Michael Snow watching their films in the audience, which is always lovely.
Oh, yeah.
But the section has grown and evolved with moving image culture at large. So it's there to showcase experimental work, structural work, abstract work, made on celluloid, which is still being made. Film is not dead, but also artist films, working in video and other multidisciplinary aspects of moving image. We used to do installations, for instance, and performances. On the feature-length side, we accommodate essay films, so hybrid documentary and experimental narratives as well. And in the largely the shorts programs, we'll also invite visual artists who work in the contemporary art world who work in film as well. So it's a little bit more broad than it used to be, but it's still very much the arty section of TIFF.
Completely. And, for me, it's always the more interesting, the more daring, of course, and the one section in which you say wow, this is it's the unexpected. It's that kind of thing you get with experimental works, I guess. And I read, I guess some years ago in an interview that you were expecting the first audience award for a Wavelengths film. Is it going to happen? Because it hasn't happened, even.
You mean the People's Choice Award?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, there's an unofficial, many people have voted for Wavelengths films, but we also have fewer screenings and fewer spectators. It is done on a percentage basis. Maybe one day we'll get there.
Yeah, completely. And how do you do then the programming of the films? Because I guess you, throughout the years, have to be connected, have a lot of connections with people that's working, but how do you get the latest innovation, the latest creator? How do you complete this program?
Right. Well, This year is a little bit different. The last 2 years, with
Yeah,
dealing with the pandemic, we've had to change the way we work.
I guess so.
So we didn't do an open submission because we have a very small program, and it wouldn't be fair to the artists to have them submit.
Yeah.
But normally, I mean, I do a lot of travel. I also work in the art world. I'm a curator as well. So I attend a lot of film festivals. I attend a lot of art biennials. I'm looking for film works in the gallery and museum spaces as well. I try to do studio visits with artists and maintain relationships. I have a strong network of other curators who are really generous and also want to champion work. So we all kind of in touch and recommending strong work that we've seen. There's been a lot of returning filmmakers as well. I think just keeping up with what's happening in the art world and the film world at large, reading about what exhibitions are coming up, what films are in pre-production. Just it's a long research process of following certain trajectories of work, and also trying to expand globally, because I haven't traveled throughout the world. There haven't been small distributors helping, but there's like an explosion of artwork in the Middle East, for instance. I'd love to see more representation from there and from Africa, and we're seeing this happening.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of collectives happening, so it's a lot of keeping up with the discourse.
Yeah, completely. One thing I really love of Wavelengths is the short films programming, because there is a link, like I don't know, the water. I remember a series of shorts linked by water, maybe by the poetry, by the style. How do you manage to place all these short films in their accurate place? Because it takes another meaning, and it's amazing. It's you feel like you've seen a feature, but with the different views of different filmmakers.
Exactly. I mean, I've likened it to sculpture in some way. It's each film has their own meaning, and you want to make sure that they have their own space to breathe. But inevitably, we have to put together a shorts program to fill the running time. And so you want to be very sensitive to the fact that not all the films are the same style, will blend in, but that could resonate off each other. Maybe one can make you think of the other in a different way. I spend a lot of time thinking about order. We're very fortunate at TIFF to have really great projectionists and really great equipment. So I've never had to put a program together because of technical reasons. So we've often gone from video to 16 to 35, change of aspect ratios. And that's a lovely thing to have. It's a great privilege as well. But yeah, I think it's a lot of thinking about what the works mean politically, formally, structurally, and making sure that certain films don't overwhelm others. I mean, it's definitely an art in and of itself.
That's very important, the quality of the projectionist, because changing from video to film, well, it's a tough issue. And what happens after TIFF? These films travel to another film festivals. These films can be seen also here at museums throughout Canada. What happens with the films that are shown in Wavelengths?
Well, different things. I mean, some of the feature films, and we've had some experimental films be bought by sales agents and by distributors. Even 3D films that were bought by really great distributors in New York. So they would get a whole other kind of theatrical life. I think the streamers are now also buying short films.
Okay.
A lot of these films are already part of a circuit. If I saw them in Berlin, for instance, or at a biennial, and they'll continue. Wavelengths has a really great relationship with other curators. So people look to the program for interesting films for their own programs. So I think we'll see a lot of these films turn up in other festivals, small and large, as well as, art biennials and, Cinematheque screenings, cine clubs.
And, you're a TIFF programmer, you're also a critic. I think I've seen some of your critics in Scope, Film Scope. It's, yes, CinemaScope. That's a very prestigious Canadian magazine. But are you going to be artistic director of a film festival any more than a year? because you were at Vision Cyril for the 40th anniversary, and
Cinéma du Réel.
Cinema de Réel. Yes, because Vision Cyril is Switzerland, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, how was the experience?
I mean, it was great. It was a great experience because it was also at the Centre Pompidou, and I have, a whole other side of me who loves to do exhibitions. I'm an exhibition maker. So during that time, we did a lot in that 1 year. We published a book, a really wonderful book of essays that confronted what is the real, which is kind of abstract, but when you put together really amazing filmmakers to answer that question, and some answered in a very unique way, also with images. So I was really proud of that book, which was done for the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
We also, speaking of Michael Snow, I put together an exhibition of his work, Slide Length, which is the wavelength equivalent in slide form, like an old slide with a projector.
Wow.
And I believe they bought it for their collection as well. So they own some Michael Snow. So we did that during the year. And we had a large exhibition of Lyle Ashton Harris, an American, largely photographer, but multidisciplinary artist, who I had discovered at the Whitney Biennial. So we were able to do a lot of exhibitions and to kind of push the envelope of art film as documentary, which was a really great experience.
Are you going to repeat as an artistic director? Is there anything in the future?
I don't know. The future is open for sure. But I do, in all that I do, I want to make sure that there's an outlet of both film as art or art as film. That's really what my interest lies in. I do love the history of cinema as well. I worked at the Cinematheque doing historical retrospectives for a long time. So I love the history of cinema. But ideally, I would love to be in a situation where we could show installations again, or I could do installations with partners and then show wavelength style shorts and features. I mean, I love the features as well as the shorts. They're just as experimental in a totally different mode. And I think some of the greatest narrative filmmakers today are working they've totally deconstructed narrative.
Yes.
And I really, for me, that's the cinema that I look to.
For instance, Claire Denis?
Yeah, Claire Denis, for sure. She's been experimental too. Look at High Life. She took all kinds of formal risks in that film, even Les Salauds. But I'm thinking of the new film by Bruno Dumont, which is experimental in a new way, deconstructs Hollywood. I think of Pedro Costa, who has, they're feature films, but they're very documentary style. They emerge like paintings. He's such a formalist. Everything, the image is so tantamount to what he does, while also having that humanistic side, of course.
So,
and for instance, there's a film that I really love in wavelengths this year. It's called The Night of Knowing Nothing by Payal Kapadia. It's a first feature by a young Indian filmmaker. And she made shorts for a number of years. And this film premiered in Cannes at the Quinzaine, and it surprised everyone by winning the Best Documentary Award. Because she was up against, Marco Bellocchio and Todd Haynes. And nobody really knew who she was. But the film is exceptionally beautiful. And it's a hybrid. She built a fictional story to talk about really difficult, oppressive situations in contemporary India for the youth today. And she does it through love letters, and she does it through cinema by quoting other filmmakers. It's based at a film school. And for me, that film just epitomizes all that film can do. She uses black and white. She uses digital. She uses a Bolex. There's color. There's surveillance footage. So it's all these images that show the range of the materiality, the texture, but it's there to witness what's happening in India and also to show us film's ability to transform those images at the same time. Very strong work.
Completely. We'll write down that recommendation. Are there other films you'd like us to watch? We have to do it Yes or yes?
Pardon me? Sorry,
Are there any other films you'd like to recommend us
Oh, sure.
from Wavelengths, or maybe even other sections?
Okay, so I'll just mention one more film from Wavelengths. It's called Saint Anne by Wayne Vermette. And this is a Canadian film from Manitoba. Also a first feature by a young woman. She's Métis, and she made it in the Métis community. It's in French. And it also has a documentary style. And it's, it's very rare that we get films from rural Manitoba. And she shot it on film. It's exceptionally beautiful. And it's a story, it's a very mysterious and elliptical story about reclamation and family and love with it. And I think it's a really amazing achievement.
Mm-hmm. It has been a moment of experimentalism, because the image has stopped, but Zoom gets it faster, and I think we've listened everything. I knew about TIFF because there was a conference called 50/50 for 2020, in which in Cannes, in which Cameron Bailey spoke. I really liked his ideas, but Andrea, you're a woman in the filmmaking, in the image world. It's 2021. Okay, there's a pandemic, but it's not 50/50, isn't it?
Actually, there's quite a few. I think I read there was over 70 films by women in TIFF this year.
Wow, and the total is 150 or around?
Not even. So that is 50/50.
Okay.
And in Wavelengths, there's quite a few. Like the two films I just mentioned are first features by women.
Yes, completely.
And in Wavelengths, there's always been a slight imbalance where we've seen more men on the feature side and more women on the short side. Because I think women have had less access and maybe time to make feature films, but shorts are a little less involved sometimes. But this year, that's not the case. There's just as many women. And another thing that I've noticed this year, which could be partially because of the pandemic, is that there are so many co-directed films. So I have 4 films that are co-directed, and one has 3 filmmakers. And I think that there's a real desire to put our energies together and just to be collective and to not be competitive. And we've just gone through a very difficult time. And, the one film, Futura, which was also in Cannes, made by Pietro Marcello, Francesco Munzi, and Alice Rohracher, that's a political film for them. That was to make a statement of collectivity. We're going to take on the issues of the day together and not be measuring ourselves against one another. Just as an example of, we need to take care of the earth. We need to take care of each other really collectively. And I'm seeing that in so many films. And women are participating in all of these. So I'm not worried about women. I've got a lot of great films by women.
Okay, that's great news. We're not worried about women, but we're a little bit worried about the planet, isn't it?
Definitely.
Okay, so Andrea Picard, thank you very much. Thank you for curating this section called Wavelengths. I always remember this filmmaker, Spanish friend of mine. I made a documentary also about him, Javier Aguirre. When there were lists of the best films in Spain, and directors said Casablanca, Ciudadano Kane, whatever, his first, always his first film was Wavelength by Michael Snow. And he was a real fan of Michael Snow, a great artist of experimental filmmaking. And we need to experiment and to collaborate, as you have said. So the future of art lies ahead of us, and it'll be, I guess, a bright future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the festival.
You too. Bye.